Welcome to Infinite Novel. Dive into epic alternate realities. All rights to original creators.
Chapter 27, Shattered Hope. What a waste. I didn't expect that hundreds of you couldn't take down just 3 or 4 people. And Miss Wednesday and Mr. 8, there's clearly something wrong with you too. But it doesn't matter. We'll finish them all off today. Miss Valentine and Mr. 5 entered the banquet hall, appearing arrogant and self-assured. Outside the window, perched on a tree branch, a sea otter and a vulture held up a drawing board, casually observing the scene inside the hall. Great! Miss Valentine and Mr. 5 are here. We're saved. The hundreds of people kneeling on the floor of the banquet hall looked excited. Their saviors had arrived. Miss Monday stretched out her arms and legs and slowly stood back up. Her backup was here, so there was no need for her to kneel any longer. It's the senior officers of Baroque Works. We're in trouble. Igaram's expression turned serious as he moved to shield Vivi behind him. The higher the codename in Baroque Works, the stronger the person. Especially cotters ranked above Mr. 5, each one possessed terrifying strength and could easily overpower the lower-level members of a branch like Whiskey Peak. Igaram looked at Cealan, unsure how he would handle this situation. Why are you so tense? Nami was confused. A fashionable blonde woman and a sloppy middle-aged man, were they really so dangerous? They're not ordinary agents. Both have dangerous devil fruit powers. One can create explosions at will. The other can freely adjust her body weight between 10 kilograms and 10,000 kilograms. They're quite troublesome opponents. Igaram explained, though he still wasn't sure whether Cealan could defeat the two of them. Oh? Finally, 2 slightly more valuable ones. Cealan showed mild interest, but he didn't have much patience to play around. It was late, and he wanted to rest. Mr. 5 couldn't stand Cealan's dismissive attitude. Let me show you what I can do with just my booger. Mr. 5 was ready to prove himself and had already stuck a finger into his nose. Cealan sucked in a sharp breath. How could he have forgotten this disgusting move? It wouldn't cause him much actual damage, but the sheer insult of it was unbearable. Cealan immediately became alert. He burst out at full speed, determined not to be hit by something so humiliating. Hey, where did he go? Mr. 5 blinked in confusion. Cealan had vanished from his sight. The next moment, everything went black as Mr. 5 lost consciousness. Cealan stomped down hard on Mr. 5's back several times, his expression full of annoyance as he vented his frustration. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. Miss Valentine, who had been standing beside Mr. 5, widened her eyes in disbelief. Cealan standing there felt more like a ghost than a person. 10,000 kilogram sweep. Miss Valentine screamed and, in fear, unleashed her devil fruit power at full strength. A whip kick carrying the force of 10,000 kilograms sliced through the air, aiming straight for Cealan's head. Cealan casually raised his forearm and blocked Miss Valentine's strongest attack without even flinching. To Miss Valentine, it felt like she had just kicked a steel wall rather than a human body. Though she was the one attacking, her calf was the one aching intensely. Before she could even cry out in pain, Cealan's counterattack came. He grabbed her slender calf with one hand. Despite the smoothness of her leg and Miss Valentine's decent looks, Cealan had no intention of showing mercy. Gripping her firmly, Cealan swung her down and slammed her into the ground. Miss Valentine's world spun wildly. Her body hit the ground with a heavy thud, and she lost consciousness on the spot. Outside the window, the sea otter's mouth dropped open, its face showing very human-like fear. But committed to its mission of gathering intel, the sea otter continued trembling on the branch, sketching with its brush. The banquet hall fell silent. It had only been 30 seconds since the 2 senior agents had entered, yet both were already lying unconscious on the floor. Miss Valentine fared slightly better, though her head was bloodied and her face bruised. Mr. 5, however, had suffered miserably. His arms were twisted unnaturally, his body half buried in the ground, twitching occasionally. The blood pooled around him. He was barely clinging to life. Everyone present stared at the scene, gasping in shock, as if they had contributed to global warming with how much cold air they inhaled. Weren't they supposed to be strong opponents? Nami turned to look at Igaram, asking the question that echoed in everyone's minds. They had been knocked down by Cealan in just 2 moves, no different from the others who had already surrendered. This is because Cealan is too strong. Igaram was deeply embarrassed. He had just finished explaining how powerful these 2 senior agents were, practically calling them invincible. Yet, the very next moment, they were both lying on the ground, completely defeated. Aside from feeling awkward, Igaram was also shocked to his core. These were senior cotters of Baroque Works, devil fruit users known for their strength. But in Cealan's hands, they were as fragile as the lowest grunts. This level of strength was truly unbelievable. Still, the stronger Cealan was, the greater Alabasta's hope for salvation. Miss Monday, who had just stood up moments earlier, now bent over and knelt down again. She wasn't sure if it was just her imagination, but the people kneeling around her seemed to be kneeling even more properly than before. 2 senior officers, defeated so easily. Miss Monday couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her last hope had completely vanished. These 2 always seemed so strong when dealing with their own subordinates. Why couldn't they handle this? Things have come to this. Better to give up. Miss Monday sighed. She no longer had any thoughts of resistance. Perhaps being captured and turned in for bounty was the best outcome. At least in a marine prison, they wouldn't have to fear Baroque Works' punishment. Tie them up. we'll collect the bounty on all of them. At Cealan's command, the group began moving. Vivi and Igaram, familiar with the area, brought ropes, and together they tied up the hands of the more than 100 kneeling bounty hunters. The members of Baroque Works, including Miss Monday, cooperated honestly, not daring to resist. Afterward, Cealan, Nami, and the others returned to the Wind Rider to rest for the night before preparing to set sail again. Igaram took charge of another ship to escort the captured Baroque Works agents, covering all of Whiskey Peak. Of course, Cealan didn't forget about Miss Valentine and Mr. Five. Both were tied securely, laid on stretchers, and brought aboard Igaram's ship. Cealan wasn't worried about them dying from their injuries. This was the world of pirates. People here had absurdly tough bodies. Even serious injuries were nothing that a little water couldn't fix. Atop a peak near the shore, the sea otter, wearing sunglasses, sketched away on its drawing board. The vulture waited nearby. These two animals, an unlucky duo from Baroque Works, were directly responsible for relaying intelligence to Crocodile. Soon, the sea otter finished its sketch, depicting Cealan and the others. After glancing back toward the banquet hall scene, the sea otter's eyes beneath its sunglasses filled with human-like fear. The sea otter climbed onto the vulture's back. Together, the two flew high into the sky, returning to report directly to Crocodile. Chapter 28 Next destination. The next morning, the sun rose over Whiskey Peak as usual. Cealan, are we heading straight to Alabasta? Nami asked while holding a sea chart. Vivi perked up her ears, listening closely to their conversation. She hoped they would head directly to Alabasta, but the route decision was not up to her. Let me see the sea chart. I'll think about it. Taking the sea chart from Nami, Cealan fell into thought. His next target was Crocodile. He wanted to improve his synchronization progress by fighting him, hoping to learn both armament haki and observation haki through that battle. He had also accepted Vivi's commission of 300 million berries to drive Crocodile out of Alabasta. If his goal was only to fight Crocodile, he could set off immediately. As long as he could engage Crocodile in battle, he would achieve his purpose. However, driving Crocodile out of Alabasta was not that simple without haki. It wasn't that he couldn't defeat him. The problem was that without haki, the battle would become too destructive. If that happened, before Crocodile was even defeated, Alabasta might already be reduced to ruins. So, where could he find haki? That was the issue. Known sources of haki were located much farther down the route, past Water 7, which was too far away. Cealan sighed as he scanned the sea chart, his eyes locking onto Little Garden nearby, and an idea came to him. There were two powerful giants living there, Dory and Brogy, captains of the former giant warrior pirates and leaders of the giants. 100 years ago, each had a bounty of 100 million berries. Cealan also knew that even later in the story, these two giants displayed impressive strength, likely exceeding that of a vice admiral. With their experience and status, even if they didn't actively use haki, they should at least understand its practice methods. Even if they didn't possess haki, they were worthy opponents. After a proper fight with them, Cealan was confident his synchronization progress could increase by 3 to 4 points, equivalent to fighting pirates worth 300 to 400 million berries. Either way, it was worth the detour. It's decided. We'll go to Little Garden first. I want a serious fight there. After that, I'll be more confident when facing Crocodile. Then we'll head directly to Alabasta. Returning the sea chart to Nami, Cealan told her his decision. Upon hearing this, both Vivi and Nami were curious. So far, they had only seen glimpses of Cealan's strength. Every enemy that had seemed powerful in their eyes had been easily crushed by him within just a few moves. What kind of opponent was there on Little Garden that could make Cealan want to go all out? What was on that island that could help defeat Crocodile? Cealan, what's on the island? Tell me. Nami couldn't hold back her curiosity and clung to Cealan, acting spoiled. Vivi also looked at him expectantly, her eyes full of curiosity. Haha, you'll find out when we get there. Cealan laughed and chose to keep it a secret. He was already imagining how Nami and Vivi would react when they saw the dinosaurs on the island. Nami and Vivi clung to Cealan, trying to get more out of him, but Cealan simply walked off to the side to continue teaching Tashigi swordsmanship. Helpless, Nami and Vivi could only direct their attention back to the journey. They set sail with curiosity, following the log pose toward Little Garden. Behind the Wind Rider, Igaram sailed the large escort ship, trailing them. The escort ship was filled with the captured Whiskey Peak bounty hunters, as well as food and wine from the town. Several dozen barrels of wine were specifically prepared by Cealan as gifts for Dory and Brogy. At the same time, Vivi tied an intelligence report to Karu the duck and sent it toward Alabasta. In Rainbase, the only city in Alabasta untouched by drought or rebellion, stood Crocodile's base of operations. A vulture carrying a sea otter flew into the kingdom's largest casino, the Rain Dinners, and dropped off a stack of drawings onto a large desk. Seated at the desk was a tall, imposing man wearing a black coat with a fur collar, a cigar between his lips. He stood about 2.5 meters tall, with a horizontal scar running across his face and a gleaming golden hook in place of his left hand. This was Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and the secret mastermind of Baroque Works, Mr. Zero, Crocodile. Crocodile's expression darkened as he picked up the stack of sketches and flipped through them one by one. The more he read, the angrier he became, his breathing growing heavier. Beside him, Nico Robin, wearing a wide-brimmed hat, watched him curiously. What could have angered Crocodile so much? That princess and her guard actually dared to infiltrate Baroque Works and uncover my identity. What are those so-called senior agents even doing? Are they just sitting around eating? Crocodile slammed the sketches of Vivi and Igaram down onto the table in frustration. Bang! The powerful force of his palm strike dented the table and left a clear handprint on top of the portrait. The sea otter and vulture standing in front of the desk trembled violently, feathers shaking loose from their bodies. Robin, who had indirectly stirred the pot, calmly touched her chin, as if reflecting on who might have leaked Crocodile's identity. And that bounty hunter from the East Blue. Crocodile picked up the portrait of Cealan, his gaze turning cold as he stared at the face drawn there. Just arrived at the Grand Line, and already causing trouble for me. He really doesn't know his place. He destroyed one of my bases and captured Miss Valentine and Mr. 5. Does he really think he can ignore me? Crocodile's fury surged, and the air pressure in the office seemed to drop as his rage filled the room. The sea otter and the vulture huddled together tightly, burying their heads in the vulture's wings. Only Robin remained calm. She knew her position well, and since she had long given up on caring about life or death, Crocodile's anger didn't faze her. Maybe, he doesn't know that Baroque Works belongs to you? Robin's tone was casual. Though meant as a calming remark, it only further irritated Crocodile. He's with Vivi. He clearly knows. And at such a critical moment in my plan to take over Alabasta, the Cealan deliberately showed up to interfere. Crocodile's fury reached its peak, and the oppressive aura of an enraged powerhouse filled the entire room. It's one thing for a mere bounty hunter to act tough in the East Blue, but to come meddling in my affairs, unforgivable. The unlucky animal duo remained frozen in place, pretending to be statues. Under the pressure of Crocodile's presence, even Robin found it slightly harder to breathe. Crocodile picked up a Den Mushy and dialed Mr. 3, Galdino, stationed at Little Garden. It's the boss. What's the matter? Galdino answered, puzzled. He was currently focused on his mission to eliminate the giants and wasn't sure why Crocodile was calling. Soon, Princess Vivi and her companions will arrive at your location. Kill them all. If even one survives, I'll feed you to the crocodiles. Crocodile's voice was filled with menace as he gave the order. Without waiting for a response, he slammed the Den Mushy down, ending the call. Yes, I won't let a single one escape. Galdino broke out in a cold sweat, frightened by the tone of Crocodile's voice. Not daring to slack off for even a moment, he immediately swore to carry out the mission without fail. After the Den Mushy went silent for a few minutes, Galdino finally snapped back to his senses. Who on earth made the boss this angry? Galdino was confused but understood one thing clearly: if he failed, Crocodile would absolutely feed him to the crocodiles. Resolved, he made up his mind. No one who landed on the island would be allowed to leave alive. Back at Crocodile's office, Robin found herself growing more and more curious about Cealan, the man bold enough to provoke Crocodile. If given the chance, she wanted to meet this man face to face. Chapter 29. There's hope. Before heading to Alabasta, the Windrider first sailed to the nearest marine base. Cealan planned to turn in the more than 100 captives on the escort ship for their bounties. As soon as the two ships docked at the base, they were met by a squad of Marines on guard. It's that bounty hunter from the East Blue. One sharp-eyed soldier immediately recognized the Windrider. Didn't he just enter the Grand Line? Why is he already here? Another soldier looked puzzled. Doesn't he have a hunter's license? Maybe he's here to ask the Marines for help. A sergeant sneered dismissively. Shut your mouth. His rank is equivalent to mine. Show some respect. The Marine base's captain scolded the lieutenant, though he clearly shared the same disdain. He could not understand why the higher UPS had issued a hunter's license to some bounty hunter from the East Blue. A rookie from the East Blue, entering the Grand Line? Just a small fry. I'm here to turn in bounties. Cealan's tone was calm as he stepped forward. He brought only Nami and a few others with him. The rest remained on the escort ship. No problem. Where are the pirates you captured? The base commander frowned, glancing around. Aside from Cealan's crew, he saw no recognizable pirates. So he brought a few lackeys and came here to show off? As expected of someone from the East Blue. Too petty. There are more than 100 people on that ship. Cealan casually pointed at the escort ship. What? A whole ship of prisoners? The captain's expression changed. His eyes widened as he quickly led a squad to board the escort ship and investigate. There really are over 100 people? Hiss, it's the crew from Whiskey Peak. The Marines on board were shocked. They had long known about Whiskey Peak but had never dared to confront them directly. Now, a newcomer who had just arrived in the Grand Line had wiped them out. It was humiliating. Is that Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine? The captain sucked in a sharp breath. This was serious. This is a direct branch base, and these are two of Baroque Works' senior agents. That's Baroque Works, Crocodile's people. How dare he capture them? The captain's pupils trembled. Cealan had only just entered the Grand Line, yet he was already provoking one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Too bold. The combined strength of these people was enough to crush his entire base 80 times over. The captain no longer dared to be careless. He quickly calculated the bounty total and returned to Cealan, now speaking with complete respect. Here is your bounty. The total is 28 million berries. Please confirm and accept it. The captain was extremely deferential, clearly putting himself below Cealan. Only 28 million? Cealan frowned. These 100+ captives together weren't even worth the same as Don Krieg and Jin. They are subordinates of the 7 warlords of the sea. the captain explained cautiously after seeing Cealan's expression. Baroque Works was Crocodile's secret force. The bounties on their heads were deliberately kept low. Cealan understood and left with the reward money without further comment. Watching the Wind Rider depart, the colonel finally let out a sigh of relief. A tough one has entered the Grand Line. For the first time, the captain fully admired the decision of the East Blue commander to issue Cealan a hunter's license. Amazing judgment. Report the situation to headquarters and process these captives. The captain looked in the direction of Alabasta, then exhaled deeply. Captain, Crocodile has a cooperative relationship with the Marines. Should we assist him? The lieutenant hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of helping pirates. Idiot. No matter how much cooperation there is, he's still a pirate. Look at the chaos he's caused. The captain snapped back at him. Then, what should we do? The lieutenant asked nervously. Don't interfere. Just maintain order. The captain rolled his eyes, irritated by the question. Perhaps Cealan really wasn't strong enough to defeat one of the 7 warlords. But the captain had a feeling. Crocodile was in serious trouble this time. Crocodile had ruled Alabasta unchecked for 4 or 5 years. Finally, someone had arrived to challenge him. In Alabasta, at the rebel camp, someone destroyed a Baroque Works base and turned in their entire crew for bounty. Koza, the leader of the rebels, was stunned. For the past 2 years, the rebels had been driven into greater and greater desperation. The deeper they investigated, the clearer it became that Baroque Works was behind the unrest, with Crocodile's influence lurking in the shadows. Ha ha, they even lost 2 senior agents? That's worth celebrating. A smile finally appeared on Koza's face. Baroque Works had been his greatest headache. No matter what he tried, he couldn't do anything to stop them. Now, this newcomer named Cealan had come and slapped Baroque Works hard across the face. Cealan, could you be the change Alabasta has been waiting for? Amid the hope, Koza still felt a trace of fear. Crocodile's strength was overwhelming, and with the might of Baroque Works backing him, neither the rebels nor the royal army stood a chance. But now, Cealan had appeared, defeated 2 senior agents, and destroyed one of Crocodile's bases. This was the first true glimmer of hope Koza had seen. Only someone with that kind of strength could possibly defeat Crocodile. Koza muttered to himself, eyes filled with determination. At the royal palace in Alabasta, after receiving the report delivered by Karu the Duck, King Cobra, and the 2 royal guards stood with serious, worried expressions. So behind Baroque Works, it really was Crocodile all along. The kingdom is in grave danger. That's one of the 7 warlords of the sea. A pirate so powerful that even the world government acknowledges him. Cobra's voice trembled. His hope felt like it was crumbling. Your Majesty, Princess Vivi has found help. There is still hope. Pell tried to comfort Cobra. Yes. This Cealan is the strongest bounty hunter from the East Blue, officially recognized with a hunter's license by the Navy. As soon as he arrived in the Grand Line, he captured 2 senior agents and destroyed an entire base of Baroque Works. Chaka summarized Cealan's achievements, trying to restore Cobra's confidence. Your Majesty, just prepare the 300 million berries. Wait for good news from Princess Vivi. Both Bell and Chaka spoke together, though deep down they were not entirely convinced. Could a newcomer from the Grand Line really stand against one of the 7 warlords? Their words were meant more to uplift Cobra's spirits than from true belief. I hope so, we have no other choice. Cobra sighed, though for the first time, a faint glimmer of hope returned to his eyes. If he really can save Alabasta, not just 300 million berries, even the throne itself, I would be willing to give up. Cobra made up his mind. If there was truly hope, he was willing to give everything. Bell and Chaka lowered their heads in silence, shame in their hearts. As Alabasta's royal guards, they had been powerless against Crocodile. Now they had to rely on outsiders to protect their country. The shame weighed heavily on them. Chapter 30 Little Garden. 2 days later, in the morning, the sun rose and pierced through the mist as the Wind Rider smoothly arrived at Little Garden. The things on this island looked so primitive, and so huge. On the deck, Nami stared at the plants on Little Garden from a distance and exclaimed, in the Grand Line, the islands are very far apart. Due to inconvenient communication, each island develops its own unique environment. Some have evolved into civilized nations, while others have retained their wild, primitive states. Little Garden has been isolated from the outside world for many years, so it has remained unchanged from thousands, even tens of thousands of years ago. This means the island is a paradise for dinosaurs and giant creatures, Vivi explained to Nami. She too was amazed as she looked toward the island. Even in the Grand Line, such a completely primitive island was quite rare. However, despite the uniqueness of the environment, Vivi could not understand how this place could help someone grow stronger. Vivi glanced at Cealan, puzzled. Cealan, did we come all the way here just to fight dinosaurs? Nami voiced the question on Vivi's mind. Dinosaurs would be worth seeing if we were in the East Blue, but in the Grand Line, they're not worth making a special trip. Cealan shook his head, denying their assumption. Then why are we here? Besides the primitiveness of the island, it doesn't seem special at all. Nami and Vivi were both filled with curiosity. They couldn't figure out what could be on this island that would require Cealan to go all out. The plants and animals here are indeed unusually large. But despite that, this place is called Little Garden. Isn't that strange? Cealan spoke calmly. Nami and Vivi paused, thinking about the meaning behind the name. I came here for the giants. In the eyes of giants, this place truly is just a little garden. Cealan no longer kept it a secret and revealed the answer. Giants? Were there really giants in this world? Nami and Vivi both froze. To them, the word giant sounded like something out of legend. Cealan did not explain further. Instead, he gathered the girls and set 20 barrels of wine on the shore. Dory, Brogy, your friends are here with good wine to visit you. While the others watched in confusion, Cealan called out toward the depths of Little Garden. Of course, Cealan had never met the two giants, nor were they actually his friends, but he believed they soon would be. Dory and Brogy had been dueling on this island for 100 years. During that time, they rarely had the chance to drink. Cealan knew the two giants were heavy drinkers. He was confident they wouldn't ignore someone who brought good wine. His voice echoed through the vast forest, spreading across the island. My friend, have you come to bring me wine? Dory, who had just knocked out a dinosaur with a punch and was about to carry it home for barbecue, stopped in his tracks. He was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing and ran toward the shore, dragging the dinosaur along. He did not doubt for a second that this could be a trap. Giants were simple and forthright by nature. Great! My friend has brought wine for me. Brogy, who was drinking water by the river, was overjoyed. He also headed toward the coast, carrying a sea king he had hunted days before. Since his friend was bringing wine, of course he had to bring meat. On the shore, after several minutes without movement, Nami and the others began to doubt whether Cealan was right. Don't worry. They're already on their way. Cealan, far more perceptive than the others, had already sensed the vibrations through the ground. The tremors were growing stronger. Boom, boom, boom. The heavy footsteps approached, getting louder and clearer with each step. Finally, two towering giants, each over 20 meters tall, appeared in their line of sight. They're huge. Giants really do exist, and there are two of them. Tashigi and Vivi were stunned, their mouths wide open as they watched the giants approach. Nami was so frightened she immediately hid behind Cealan. Igaram stood firmly by Vivi's side, ready to protect her if necessary. Dory carried the dinosaur. Brogy held the Sea King. As they charged forward, the two giants crashed through the forest, shattering trees over 10 meters tall with ease. The forest animals scattered in panic. Under the shocked gazes of the girls, Dory and Brogy finally stopped in front of Cealan. They placed the dinosaur and Sea King on the ground. Ka. My friend, I don't believe we've met before? Dory let out his signature laugh and looked at Cealan with curiosity. He racked his brain but could not recall ever having a friend named Cealan. I haven't met you either, my friend. How sad. Brogy also laughed heartily, watching Cealan with interest. Haha, well, we've met now, haven't we? Cealan smiled and tossed 2 barrels of wine toward the giants. Dory and Brogy's eyes sparkled as they caught the barrels and began to drink. The oak barrels, each 80 centimeters wide and 120 centimeters tall, looked like wine glasses in their massive hands. With just 2 gulps, each giant downed over 1,000 liters of wine. Sad. So refreshing. Ka. Refreshing indeed. Yes. You are now our friend. After emptying the 2 barrels, Dory and Brogy laughed heartily, officially recognizing Cealan as a friend. My friend, since you brought us wine, we will share our food with you. Dory and Brogy pushed the dinosaur and Sea King towards Cealan, offering to share the feast. Haha, such good meat is perfect to go with this wine. Let's enjoy it together. Cealan showed no hesitation and readily accepted. His bold attitude only made the giants like him even more. With everyone's help, the massive dinosaur and Sea King were soon roasted over the fire. Large slabs of meat and barrels of wine brought the group closer together. The 2 giants grew more and more fond of Cealan and his companions. Dozens of barrels of wine were emptied. Only the bones of the dinosaur and Sea King remained. Sad. Ka. What a refreshing day. Thank you, my friend. Dory and Brogy laughed heartily, more cheerful than they had been in a century. You're welcome. Now that we've eaten and drunk our fill, how about we have a big fight? Cealan wiped the grease from the corner of his mouth, his eyes gleaming with fighting spirit. His body radiated an intense aura, like the collapse of heaven and earth. He had come here precisely for this battle, to fight and to learn haki. In the presence of true warriors, directness was the only way. Nami and the others were stunned. Wasn't this too sudden? They turned to look at Dory and Brogy, expecting them to be angry. But instead, the 2 giants looked at Cealan with eyes full of excitement. So, you are a bold warrior. We acknowledge you. Dory and Brogy's gazes burned with passion. This fighting spirit was exactly what they admired in a friend and in a worthy opponent. Chapter 31, True Battle, Bonus. At noon, the sun hung high overhead. 2 giants stood opposite Cealan beneath the scorching sunlight. Is it really okay for Cealan to fight 2 giants at once? Nami and the other girls had returned to the Wind Rider, watching nervously from the ship as the 2 figures faced off on the shore. Cealan's build was tall and strong for a human, but compared to the 2 giants, who stood over 20 meters tall, he barely reached their knees. The difference in size was overwhelming, and Nami and the others couldn't help but feel worried. This guy actually wants to take on 2 giants. Who do you think will win? Deep within the jungle, Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week watched the fight through binoculars from afar. Even from thousands of meters away, they could still feel the intense aura coming from Cealan. Is this the bounty hunter who defeated Miss Valentine and Mr. 5? With momentum like this, can we really kill him? Miss Golden Week, who looked like a young girl, widened her eyes, filled with doubt. Sure, his momentum is impressive, but he clearly isn't thinking straight. He actually wants to fight two giants at the same time. Mr. 3, Galdino, couldn't understand why Cealan was so desperate to challenge the two giants. These two weren't just any opponents. They were Dori and Brogy, legendary giant warriors who each carried a bounty of 100 million berries from 100 years ago. We don't need to lift a finger. He'll die on his own. Galdino, with the number 3 shaped into his hairstyle, was in high spirits. Unexpectedly, Cealan had gotten himself into serious trouble without any interference from them. It looked like the boss's mission could be completed easily. Galdino had witnessed the brute strength of the two giants over the past few days. Their raw power was like something out of legend, capable of moving mountains and parting seas. On the coast of Little Garden, Dori and Brogy stood facing Cealan. I've heard of the red ogre Brogy and the blue ogre Dori for a long time. I'm honored to finally face the two of you. Cealan's fighting spirit was surging. After dealing with so many weaklings, he was itching for a real fight. Are you sure you want to fight the two of us at the same time? The two giants spoke in unison. They held a good impression of Cealan and didn't particularly want to team up to overwhelm him. Of course. Please, both of you, come at me together. Cealan stood firm without the slightest hesitation. The combined strength of these two giants was roughly equivalent to a right-hand man of a Yonko, making them the perfect opponents for him. Bold words. Crack, crack, crack. This is the pride of a true warrior. Let's fight. Dori and Brogy both laughed heartily, their respect for Cealan growing even deeper. They would go all out, showing Cealan the honor and might of Elbaf's greatest warriors. Dori and Brogy bent their knees slightly. Every muscle in their bodies tensed, gathering strength. Whoosh! Dori launched a left punch while Brogy swung a right punch. Two fists, as large as giant gates, cut through the air, carrying with them an overwhelming gust of wind. It was just a simple, straight punch, but powered by the strength of giants, it became a terrifying force of destruction. Even though the giants were punching from 300 meters away, the force of their strike stirred the sails of the Wind Rider and made the ship rock violently. As the massive fists drew closer, the fierce wind whipped Cealan's clothes and sent his hair flying wildly. The intense pressure tightened the skin on his face. Ha ha ha. Cealan laughed wildly, excitement shining in his eyes. Facing the two giant punches head-on, he made no attempt to dodge. Instead, he unleashed all of his strength, throwing both fists forward to meet their attack. With the immense force behind his arms, Cealan's fists cut through the air with a sharp, explosive sound. No fancy techniques, just a straight punch to clash directly with the two giants' blows. Boom! The giant's fists collided with Cealan's in midair, producing a deafening explosion like a cannon blast. The sand beneath the three fighters surged upward, rising over 30 meters high and completely obscuring their figures. At the center of the battlefield, shockwaves radiated outward. Tall trees snapped and broke apart, and green leaves filled the sky like a storm of blades. As the dust finally settled, the scene on the coast became clear again. A giant crater, 100 meters wide, had been blasted into the shoreline. The surrounding forest had been ravaged, leaving only broken trunks where tall trees once stood. The two giants stood together, swinging their arms, their fists stained with blood. Cealan, on the other hand, remained standing as if nothing had happened, save for his slightly dirted clothes. On the Wind Rider, Nami and the others stared in disbelief. So, this is his true strength. Compared to Cealan's previous battles, this was on a whole different level. With just a single punch, the terrain within several hundred meters had been completely altered. Deep in the jungle, Mr. 3 Galdino and Miss Golden Week were frozen in shock. When they had received their orders, they thought the newcomer from the East Blue would be easy prey. But now they realized they were dealing with a monster. No wonder Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine had been defeated. Even if they were to face Cealan head-on, they wouldn't be able to escape their fate. The boss really wants us to kill a monster like this? Isn't that asking a bit much? Miss Golden Week wore a bitter expression, completely unsure how to handle the situation. Don't panic. We'll wait until he and the two giants have both worn each other down. Then we'll step in. Mr. 3 Galdino flashed a sinister grin, ambition gleaming in his eyes. Even after witnessing Cealan and the giant's overwhelming strength, he had no intention of backing down. If his plan succeeded, he could not only eliminate Cealan but also claim the 100 million berry bounty on each of the giants. High risk, high reward. If I pull this off, my rank will rise. I could become Mr. 2, maybe even Mr. 1. Galdino couldn't hold back his laughter as he imagined the possibilities. Back on the shore, Dori and Brogy stared at Cealan with solemn expressions. He's incredibly strong. Dori spoke from the heart. When their fists met, it had felt no different from clashing against Brogy himself. Cealan's power was that overwhelming. His fists were as hard as steel, cutting straight into their flesh. That's right. To match the combined strength of the two of us, it's unbelievable. Brogy was equally shocked by Cealan's strength. They were the strongest giant warriors of Elbaf. Yet even together, they were only just holding their own against this one human. It was completely beyond anything they had ever imagined. Both Dori and Brogy began to question themselves. Who is the real giant here? Don't hold back, either of you. I've heard that Dori and Brogy are both masters of haki. I'd like to see it with my own eyes. After exchanging punches, Cealan felt exhilarated. Releasing his full power like this, he could sense something inside him beginning to stir, just waiting to erupt. Cealan had a hunch that if he faced Haki head-on in battle, he might be able to awaken his own Haki as well. Chapter 32, let's fight to our heart's content kaka. So, you want to see Haki in action? We'll show you. Dori, wielding a giant sword over 10 meters long, and Brogy, holding a giant axe weighing several dozen tons, officially launched their attack on Cealan. At first glance, the giants' weapons didn't seem particularly special aside from their enormous size. However, Cealan, with his B-rank mind's eye fake, could sense the existence of something extraordinary. In Cealan's perception, both weapons were enveloped by invisible yet tangible auras. So this is Haki? Cealan smiled. Just as he expected, both giants were users of Haki. Though they had not reached the advanced level of hardening, they could still imbue their weapons with armament Haki at the base level. It was the same kind of technique used by the warriors of Amazon Lily. Cealan drew the greatsword strapped behind his back and engaged the two giants head-on. Brogy's massive axe was the first to swing down, aiming straight for Cealan's head. Cealan leapt into the air and kicked the axe aside mid-swing. Brogy's axe struck the ground off-target, leaving behind a pit more than 10 meters deep. Seeing Brogy's attack so easily deflected, Dori's excitement surged. Dori roared, raising his greatsword high and swinging it towards Cealan. Though the blade was not sharp and over 10 centimeters thick, with the power of a giant, this swing could easily smash a person into pulp. Cealan met the blow head-on, swinging his sword to clash against Dori's. Relying solely on his immense strength, Cealan actually chipped Dori's greatsword, leaving a visible crack along its edge. The two giants attacked one after the other, sometimes striking together, and each attack was a deadly blow filled with overwhelming force. Cealan was completely absorbed in the fight. He would evade one giant's attack, only to immediately counter the other. In the midst of these fierce clashes, Cealan carefully observed the flow and nature of their Haki, sensing its form and power. The intense battle continued for over 2 hours, with the three of them still going strong, though the surrounding landscape had already been devastated. At that moment, Cealan seemed to grasp something deep within his heart. His Haki was on the verge of erupting. He was just one step away. He needed one final push. Dori, Brogy, your weapons are about to break. Use your strongest attack to decide this fight. Cealan blocked the giant axe and sword once again, shouting at the two excited giants. It's been 100 years. Our weapons are nearing their limits too. The two giants looked at their weapons. Cracks had spread across their surfaces, and they were clearly on the verge of breaking. After fighting each other for a century, and now clashing fiercely with Cealan, even the solid craftsmanship of Elbaf's weapons could not endure. Dori, do you feel it? His strength is even more terrifying than ours. It feels endless. If this keeps up, we won't be able to defeat him. Brogy turned to Dori with a grin. You're right. Our only chance now is to use the technique and finish this with one blow. Dori laughed loudly in response. If they continued the fight like this, defeat was inevitable. Only by unleashing their strongest attack could they hope to take Cealan down. Hey, Cealan boy, be careful. If you can't withstand this move, you will die. Dori and Brogy warned him seriously. Roar! X2 The two giants shouted together, gathering all of their strength. Their already terrifying aura surged to an even greater level. A green aura wrapped around Dori, while a red aura surrounded Brogy. The two auras intertwined, amplifying one another. The blue ogre Dori and the red ogre Brogy were now fighting at full power. So this is the strongest martial art of Elbaf, the Heikoku sovereignty. Cealan could feel the terrifying power rushing toward him, and the fighting spirit within his body ignited, making him even more excited. Good. I'll take this seriously as well. Cealan steadied himself, shifting from a one-handed grip to holding his sword with both hands. Hoo! Ha! An intense aura burst forth from Cealan, causing ripples through the air. He focused all of his will into the sword he held, channeling every ounce of his strength into this strike. The sharp sword energy soared into the sky, tearing apart the earth, rocks, and shattered wood around him. A swordsman at this level? What an incredible warrior. Dori and Brogy felt the sword energy prickling against their skin and couldn't help but be impressed. This level of swordsmanship was not far from that of a true master swordsman. Come on, Dori, we can't let him underestimate us. Understood, Brogy. With perfect coordination, Dori and Brogy raised their greatsword and axe high into the air. The veins on their arms bulged as they poured every ounce of their strength into this final attack. The next moment, the greatsword and axe crossed together, merging their green and red auras into one. This is Elbaf's strongest technique. Heikoku sovereignty. A devastating shockwave surged forth, erupting like a volcano. The instant the attack was unleashed, their weapons shattered simultaneously. Cealan, having gathered his strength for so long, finally released all the power and will within him. At that moment, black madness swirled around him, making him appear like a devil emerging from the depths of hell. Ha! In the next instant, all of that immense power condensed into the giant sword in Cealan's hands. A dark slash flew from his blade, colliding head-on with the massive shockwave. Boom! With a deafening roar, a towering mushroom cloud exploded into the sky, shaking the entire island. As the explosion's aftermath faded away, the figures of the two giants and Cealan reappeared. Cealan stood firm, sword in hand, while Dori and Brogy had collapsed, completely drained of strength. The two giants lay sprawled on the ground, unable to lift even a finger. Our Heikoku sovereignty was blocked. Ka, what a great fight. Dori laughed heartily, showing no concern over their loss. If they lost this time, they could always fight again next time. Cealan, you're a true warrior. How admirable. Brogy voiced his sincere respect. Though Cealan remained standing, his condition was far from good. 3 or 4 of his ribs were broken, his entire body soaked in blood, and pain surged through him. That was exhilarating. Despite his serious injuries, Cealan was not disheartened. Instead, he laughed toward the sky. Because, at that moment, all 3 types of haki within him had awakened. In the instant of clashing head-on with the Heikoku sovereignty, under that immense pressure, his latent haki had fully awakened. His observation haki spread far into the distance. The worried Nami and the other girls on the Wind Rider, even Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week, hiding in the jungle, could not escape his perception. Every movement, every presence, even without looking, was now clear in Cealan's mind. Cealan raised his left hand, his bloodied palm now wrapped in a layer of dark armament haki. Just awakened, and already reached the second stage? Cealan wasn't surprised. Given his powerful foundation, it was only natural for his armament haki to be strong. He smiled. It seemed Crocodile of Alabasta was in for a tough time, but what surprised him the most was the awakening of his conqueror's haki. An invisible, overwhelming aura surged from Cealan, sweeping across the island. In the next moment, countless terrifying purple-black lightning bolts crackled through the air, engulfing the entire island. Every creature on the island, from the ferocious saber-toothed tigers to the towering dinosaurs, collapsed one after another under the force of his aura. That's Conqueror's haki. Dori and Brogy, lying powerless on the ground, widened their eyes and turned toward Cealan in disbelief. He just entered the Grand Line, and already possesses such incredible strength. After this battle, he even awakened the qualifications of a king. The new world is about to become even more chaotic. Chapter 33, Foolish Galdino? Deep in the jungle, Mr. 3 Galdino and Miss Golden Week wiped the sweat from their foreheads. Those 3 guys are complete monsters, especially that Cealan. 2 giants together couldn't defeat him. Is he really from the East Blue? The scene of the clash between them replayed in Miss Golden Week's mind, filling her with fear as she glanced at the battlefield in the distance. He's way too strong. If we had charged him directly, we'd probably be lying on the ground right now. Galdino felt a wave of relief. Thankfully, they had chosen to watch from afar instead of rushing in blindly. And what was that aura with black lightning earlier? Even though we were halfway across the island, it still paralyzed us. I couldn't move at all. Miss Golden Week was terrified. It was the first time she had experienced such overwhelming pressure, a shock that struck both body and soul. That was most likely the legendary conqueror's haki, the spirit of a king. Not even the boss has that. Galdino spoke seriously, though there was a trace of excitement in his voice. The qualification to become a king. To think such power would appear at the very beginning of the Grand Line. Galdino looked at the 2 giants collapsed on the ground and at Cealan, bleeding but still standing, and a bold idea began to take shape in his mind. They're all injured right now. This is our chance. If we take them down here, the boss will be blown away by our achievement. Galdino licked his dry lips, his ambition growing uncontrollably. Yeah, they're seriously injured. This is the perfect opportunity. Miss Golden Week hesitated for a moment but ultimately agreed. Cealan and his crew were the ones Princess Vivi had called for help. They were the enemy. If they didn't take this chance while Cealan was weakened, they might not get another. If he recovered and came after them later, she had no idea how they would handle it. Seeing that the battle was over, the women from the Wind Rider quickly came ashore, rushing to Cealan's side to protect him. Cealan, how could you be this badly injured? Nami looked at Cealan, whose body was covered in blood and clothes torn apart, her eyes filled with concern. Tashigi was also flustered. Seeing him so wounded broke her heart. You didn't have to go this far. Vivi's eyes welled with tears, deeply moved. She had thought Cealan had come to Little Garden to fight the giants simply because of her commission, to help her defeat Crocodile. Now, complex emotions stirred within her as she looked at him. Well, there's no need to be so sad. I'm fine. Looking at the worried and emotional girls, Cealan broke the heavy mood with a smile. You call this fine? Nami didn't believe him at all. Ignoring the blood on his body, she hugged Cealan tightly, pressing his head against her soft chest. Vivi and Tashigi didn't believe him either. They carefully helped Cealan sit down and gently tended to his injuries. What could he say? Feeling the soft warmth pressing against his face, Cealan was helpless. The truth was, he really was fine. Thanks to the 12 labors of his noble phantasm, he possessed 12 lives, and his injuries could recover after a short time. The Heikoku sovereignty unleashed by Dori and Brogy had indeed been powerful. But Cealan's body wasn't just for show. He hadn't even lost a single life. His stamina and wounds were quickly healing under the nourishment of his magical energy. Haha, brother Cealan sure is popular. Dori and Brogy, lying on the ground, couldn't help but laugh bitterly as they watched the scene in front of them. Dori, you good? I'm fine. Brogy, you holding up? Haha, I'm fine too. The 2 giants comforted each other, their exchange somewhat comical despite the situation. Suddenly, Galdino appeared before everyone, with Miss Golden Week standing beside him. Cealan had already sensed their presence the moment he awakened his observation haki, but he hadn't expected them to actually show themselves after witnessing his power. Looking at the two of them with interest, Cealan wanted to see what tricks they planned to pull. What a magnificent battle. Thank you all for such a wonderful performance. Galdino clapped arrogantly, a smug smile on his face. It's the Baroque Works senior agents, Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week. Damn it, why are they here? Vivi's expression grew tense, as if facing a great enemy. These two were ranked much higher than Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, and their strength was significantly greater. Nami and Tashigi stayed close to Cealan, their guard fully up. With both Cealan and the giant seriously injured, they were in no shape to face the two senior agents. Ha ha ha, now you will become my greatest achievement. A candle-like flame flickered atop Galdino's head as wax began to flow from his body. Large amounts of wax spread across the ground, quickly surrounding the giants and Cealan. Miss Goldenweek pulled out her emotion paints, ready to manipulate their mental states at any moment. I can't move at all. If I die at the hands of a scumbag like this, it will be the ultimate humiliation. Dory struggled against the hardened wax, but his body was spent. He could only drag himself a few inches on the ground. Yeah, if I'm going to die, I'd rather it be by Cealan's sword. Brogy also gritted his teeth in frustration. Dying at the hands of Mr. 3 felt like an insult after the battle they had just fought. Ha ha ha, you're all out of strength. How could you possibly break free from my wax? Galdino laughed triumphantly as he approached Cealan. Even the giants couldn't resist. There was no way Cealan could fight back now. Even if you awaken Conqueror's Haki, you don't have the strength to resist. This is perfect. I'll turn you into a wax sculpture, my most prized masterpiece. Galdino was completely intoxicated by his own fantasy. The thought of killing Cealan, a man with the qualifications of a king, made him tremble with excitement. Nami, Tashigi, and Vivi stood firmly in front of Cealan, glaring at Galdino with hatred. But Galdino only laughed more arrogantly, his eyes filled with mockery. No matter how strong you were before, or how powerful you might become, right now you're nothing but prey waiting for the slaughter. Sigh. Cealan let out a soft sigh. So this was all they had? He had expected something more impressive. He thought they might have some deadly trump card, but it turned out they were just here to pick up the scraps. During Galdino's long speech, Cealan's injuries and stamina had mostly recovered. A little more time and he would be fully healed. But honestly, Cealan had lost interest. He didn't feel like listening to this clown any longer. With a sudden burst of strength, Cealan shattered the hardened wax beneath his feet, which was as tough as steel. Galdino's eyes widened in horror as Cealan's figure vanished before him, only for a shadow to suddenly appear right in front of his face. Before Galdino could react, a large hand wrapped tightly around his throat. How could he be this fast? So fast that Galdino couldn't even process what was happening. Aren't you supposed to be seriously injured? Galdino's voice trembled with fear. Those injuries are already healed. Cealan's voice was calm, almost indifferent. In just a few moments, his body had already recovered from the earlier battle. Healed. Such severe wounds, healed so quickly? How was that even possible? Galdino's eyes bulged in disbelief, as if he had just heard the most ridiculous lie. But before he could say another word, Cealan applied a bit of pressure, cutting off his breath and knocking him unconscious. Chapter 34, Furious Crocodile. Seeing the arrogant Galdino knocked unconscious by Cealan, Miss Goldenweek's legs went weak as she stood trembling, staring at him. What just happened? He had looked half dead only a moment ago, being cared for by several girls. How could he suddenly recover and knock out Mr. 3 as if he had teleported? This was terrifying. Miss Goldenweek's mind was filled with question marks, and cold sweat rolled down her forehead. Ka. I'm glad I didn't have to die at the hands of a scumbag like that. Dory laughed heartily. Sad. Cealan really is a monster. To recover so quickly. Brogy was also happy for Cealan's counterattack, though at the same time, he was shocked by Cealan's terrifying recovery ability. Nami, Tashigi, and Vivi were equally stunned watching Cealan suddenly rise and turn the situation around. Not only had the enemy been caught off guard, but even they could not figure out how Cealan had healed so fast. Cealan, you didn't use some method that overdraws your life force just to recover so quickly, did you? Vivi's eyes filled with tears, and she covered her mouth as she spoke. Nami and Tashigi nodded in agreement, both looking at Cealan with concern and heartache. Even Dory and Brogy believed that was the case, nodding in understanding. How could that be? It was just a small injury. Just needed a little water. Cealan replied casually, looking completely relaxed as he explained to the girls. He truly was not afraid of being injured. All he had lost was a bit of magical energy. That magic power would naturally recover with time, or at worst, after a good meal. You don't need to explain. We understand. Vivi clearly did not believe him at all and simply assumed he was trying to comfort them. Nami and Tashigi felt the same. Well, alright. Think what you want. Cealan could only spread his hands helplessly. What else could he say? No one was going to believe the truth anyway. Now then, let's deal with the lady over there. As soon as Cealan spoke, everyone's eyes turned toward Miss Goldenweek. Under their angry stares, Miss Goldenweek stood frozen in place. Is it too late to kneel down and beg for mercy now? Tears welled up at the corners of the young girl's eyes. She didn't know what to do. You're here on Crocodile's orders to deal with us, right? Cealan asked her with a smile. But in Miss Goldenweek's eyes, he looked like a devil. And no, that's right, Miss Goldenweek stammered, unable to lie. Hand over the den mushy. I want to talk to him. Cealan kept smiling as he spoke. I won't. Miss Goldenweek mustered up the courage to try and refuse. Won't what? Cealan's face instantly turned cold as he raised the same right hand that had knocked out Galdino. I won't refuse your request. Forget it, Crocodile. I'm sorry. Tears filled Miss Goldenweek's eyes as she hurriedly handed over the Den Mushi to Cealan. Brew brew brew. Brew brew brew. Cealan accepted it with satisfaction and dialed the Den Mushi. Hello, Mr. 3. I was just about to contact you. Is there any good news? After you finish them off, return immediately. Our plan needs to begin ahead of schedule. Crocodile's cold voice came through the Den Mushi, the snail showing an indifferent expression. In his mind, it was only natural that Mr. 3 and Miss Goldenweek would succeed in taking down Cealan and his group. Vivi trembled when she heard Crocodile's voice. The plan was moving forward sooner than expected. Time was running out for Alabasta. Crocodile? I'm not your useless subordinate. Cealan's tone was casual, showing not the slightest respect. Who are you? Hearing Cealan's unfriendly tone and the fact that he called him by name, Crocodile's voice grew darker. Cealan. Cealan chuckled as he answered. There was a brief silence, but as soon as Crocodile processed the name that had ruined his plans twice already, his anger flared. So, Mr. 3 failed after all. They're useless trash. Though his voice stayed calm, it was clear Crocodile was suppressing his rage. He knew shouting over the Den Mushi would accomplish nothing. That's right. Everyone in Baroque Works is trash. I've already traded a whole shipload of your men for bounties. Mr. Crocodile, it would be great if you could turn yourself in for the bounty too. Cealan smiled, his words sharp and direct, completely disregarding Crocodile's pride. They were already clear enemies. Making Crocodile angry only made Cealan happier. You dare provoke me just because you defeated a few of my subordinates? Crocodile's eye twitched with anger as he growled. Crocodile, enjoy the time you have left. You won't have many good days ahead. Cealan's voice remained calm. You, click. Just as Crocodile was about to roar again, Cealan calmly hung up the Den Mushi. Staring at the disconnected snail, Crocodile's face twisted with rage. He casually crushed the ashtray on his desk into powder, his mood foul. Cealan, I'll make sure you regret this. A newcomer who had only just entered the Grand Line dared to challenge him and ruin his plans. Crocodile had already decided to make Cealan's death as cruel as possible, to send a message to the world about the price of offending the Desert King. Everyone heard it. Crocodile can't wait to make his move, so we need to move fast too. Cealan turned to Nami and the others. Crocodile was ready to advance his plans. They had no reason to delay either. The purpose of coming to Little Garden was complete. There was no longer any need to stay. Vivi looked serious, her heart heavy with concern for Alabasta's situation, but she also felt touched by Cealan's support. Dory and Brogy did not think too deeply about the situation. They simply felt honored. What kind of waves would Cealan, the man who had defeated them, stir up on these seas? Surely, the news would soon shake the world. With the blessings of the two giant warriors, Cealan set out once again. Of course, before leaving, Cealan did not forget to bring along the unconscious Mr. 3 and the trembling Miss Goldenweek. After all, they were walking piles of bounty. Suddenly, Cealan had an amusing thought. If Crocodile kept sending people after him one by one, would he be able to gather the entire Baroque Works into Impel Down himself? Chapter 35, Incoming War. The Wind Rider left Little Garden, heading toward Alabasta. During the voyage, Cealan passed by a marine base. While resupplying, he exchanged Mr. 3 and Miss Goldenweek for their bounties. Mr. Cealan, are you here to turn in bounties? The marine base commander, Captain Rocus, came forward enthusiastically to greet him. The news that Cealan had exchanged bounties a few days prior had already spread among the marine branches around Alabasta. All the local bases knew that a powerful bounty hunter had arrived on the Grand Line. Yes, I've had a few small gains these past couple of days. Cealan smiled. He waved his hand, and Igaram stepped forward with the depressed Mr. 3 and Miss Goldenweek. Another senior agent of Baroque Works. Rocus's eyes widened, his heart shaken. This was just a small gain? A few days ago, they turned in Miss Valentine and Mr. 5. Now it was Miss Goldenweek and Mr. 3. Was this bounty hunter openly declaring war on Crocodile? Rocus did not dare to ask further and quickly prepared the reward. Miss Goldenweek's bounty is 27 million berries, and Mr. 3's bounty is 24 million berries. That makes a total of 51 million berries. Rocus carefully handed over the bounty. Pleasure doing business. Cealan nodded with satisfaction. This bounty was worth more than the group of over 100 people he had turned in previously. Excuse me, are you planning to go to war with the warlord of the sea? Rocus couldn't help but ask, though he kept his voice cautious. Of course, Cealan answered casually as he accepted the bounty and turned to leave. Rocus gasped as he watched Cealan walk away. Another challenger, he muttered to himself. Crocodile's infamy on the seas was well known. Many had tried to take him down to make a name for themselves, but all had failed. I hope you survive. Rocus shook his head. Even though Cealan had taken down 4 senior agents of Baroque Works, Rocus still did not believe he had the strength to defeat Crocodile. In his eyes, there was an unbridgeable gap between a warlord of the sea and their subordinates. If Cealan could simply survive facing Crocodile, it would already be an accomplishment worth boasting about. Alabasta, Royal Palace. The helpers Princess Vivi brought have turned in Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week for bounties. Pell reported the good news to King Cobra with excitement. Yes. So far, they've already taken down 4 senior agents of Baroque Works. Their damage is severe. Chaka was also pleased. In just a few days, Cealan had captured 4 senior agents, while their own forces had only managed to eliminate some foot soldiers. It was honestly a bit embarrassing in comparison. Good news keeps coming one after another. This is truly encouraging. Cobra smiled with relief. If they could eliminate 7 or 8 more senior agents and defeat Crocodile, the crisis in Alabasta would be over. However, as he thought about it, Cobra's expression froze slightly. That would still be a difficult task. But at this point, they had no choice but to move forward, one step at a time. Lately, the people from Baroque Works have been very active. They might be preparing to make a move. Chaka's tone turned serious. The recent movements from Baroque Works were likely triggered by Cealan's actions. They're attacking non-stop. We can't afford to fall behind either. We must do everything we can to stabilize the situation and crush Crocodile's plot. Cobra's eyes were firm. Hope was right before them. All they could do was endure the pressure and wait for Cealan's arrival. Alabasta, Rain Dinners, Baroque Works headquarters. A newcomer from the East Blue captured 4 of my agents and had the nerve to mock me. Crocodile's face was dark, and the ashtray in his hand shattered into powder once again. In the office, all the senior agents of Baroque Works lowered their heads, quietly waiting for Crocodile's anger to subside. After a long moment, Crocodile's expression finally calmed. The plan to seize Alabasta has reached its final stage. It must not be disrupted. His tone was cold and sharp. He had prepared for 5 years. Now was the moment to reap the rewards, and he would not allow anyone to get in his way. Except for Miss All Sunday, all remaining agents will head to the ports of Alabasta and wait. This time, Crocodile did not plan to proceed slowly. He intended to crush Cobra's resistance directly and force him to surrender. The remaining agents were to be used to deal with Cealan. As soon as Cealan and his crew land in Alabasta, eliminate them immediately. Crocodile's eyes narrowed dangerously, his voice low and menacing. Boss, we will definitely complete the mission. Mr. 1 was the first to speak up, followed by the other agents, all echoing their determination. You better keep your word. Don't end up like those 2 fools. Crocodile snorted coldly. Thinking of Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week, who had been so confident just days ago only to end up as prisoners, made his blood boil. Don't worry, boss. With all of us working together, we can definitely take him down. Mr. 4 spoke confidently, patting his large belly. Cealan may have been able to defeat Mr. 3, but with so many senior agents joining forces, they were certain they could handle him. Humph. That better be the case. Crocodile finally relaxed a little. Even if they could not defeat Cealan outright, it didn't matter. All they needed was to delay him long enough for the plan to be completed. Once he had the time, Crocodile would personally show Cealan the price of opposing the Desert King. Aboard the Wind Rider, Cealan stashed away the bounty and lay back on his bed. At that moment, his attention shifted to the system panel in his mind. Host Cealan Alaric Template Berserker Class Heracles Synchronization Progress 54.5% Berry 3 million Strength B+ upward arrow Endurance B+ upward arrow Agility B+ upward arrow Magic B+ upward arrow Luck A Noble Phantasm A+ Personal Skills Battle Continuation B Mind's Eye Fake B Valor A+ Divinity A Madness Enhancement B Other Skills Swordsmanship B+ Armament Haki C Observation Haki C Conqueror's Haki B+ Noble Phantasms God Hand The 12 Labors B 9 Lives Shooting The 100 Heads C A+. After the battle with Dori and Brogy, Cealan had gained a great deal. Just as he had expected, the fight pushed his synchronization progress up by 4%. More importantly, all 3 types of Haki within him had awakened. His Armament Haki and Observation Haki both started at sea level, which was already the level of pirates with bounties over 100 million in the New World. As for his Conqueror's Haki, it had directly reached B+. Cealan guessed that if he could fully comprehend Advanced Conqueror's Haki, his rating could break through to a level, matching the level of the 4 Emperors. After the fight with the Giants, Cealan now had a clearer understanding of the system panel's values. Above a level was the realm of Admirals and the 4 Emperors. B and C levels covered the range from Marine Headquarters Rear Admirals to Yonko Commanders. D and E levels were the stages of ordinary people stepping into the realm of the extraordinary. With his current stats, Cealan was already at the top level of a Yonko Commander. Cealan quietly planned his next move. His next step was to completely take down Crocodile and claim the 300 million berry commission from Alabasta. Loved this story? Hit subscribe and join Infinite Novel to be the first to catch new chapters.